Man, that fight was cheeks.
They got Mike out here tripping.
Them poor boys are back at it again. First it was Mayweather, now it's Mike Tyson. They're like on a Legends tour. Who's next? Roy Jones? Father Time is undefeated once again, and that squared circle always tells the truth. That's why I love boxing so much. It never lies to you. It's the only place you'll find on earth that always tells you the truth. And you can't lie to it. You can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to the ring. And tonight, the truth is that this is a young man's game. 58 is 58, 28 is 28. No matter who you are, even if you are one of the greatest of all times, the legendary Iron Mike started to look rusty tonight. And don't get me wrong, I love Mike Tyson. I painted him right here. This is my piece, one of the greatest legends of all time. And I'm just glad that we didn't get to see Mike Tyson hurt. But boxing has long surpassed Mike Tyson. And he's a great person now. He's become such an amazing person in real life that he doesn't even need boxing anymore. He's bigger than boxing now. And it's just sad to see him go out that way. It's bittersweet because it's good to see Mike Tyson back in the ring. But against Jake Paul, and to see him that way, I mean, his body really betrayed him. The mind always stays the same. He's always been that killer Mike. And he always has had that mentality, but the fire is no longer in the heart. You can see in his eyes, the way he walked in, he looks anxious, he looks scared. He no longer had that aura of invincibility within him. He doesn't believe in himself no more, not to the same degree as he did once he was a conqueror, when he was the baddest man on the planet. When even Achilles himself could step in the ring and he would destroy and annihilate them. He viewed himself as a god.
I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever.
And to come from that pride and have that much ego within you, and then to walk in there as a shell of your former self, it takes a toll on you. And we saw that on the night when we saw Mike Tyson really struggling to get it going and his body betraying him. They say the power or the punches in the hands of a fighter is the last things to go, but they forgot to mention that the first thing that goes out of a fighter is their legs. And the leg is the most important thing in boxing. You may think it's the hands, whatever part of your body is, the legs are the most important part of boxing. If you don't have the legs, you don't have the footwork. If you don't have the footwork, you don't have the delivery system to deliver whatever it is combinations you have in the hands you have. Like, without the legs, you have no wheels. I mean, Mike Tyson's 58. His power, his punches were like of a 30, 40-year-old. But his legs was like 80. It was like watching Joe Biden walk on sand. I mean, ay. But would I like to see Mike Tyson in the ring again? Most definitely. But this time against someone in his own age, within his own abilities. Because when you look at this fight, Jake Paul is a power puncher. You can say whatever you want about him. You can clown him as this and that. But he is a power puncher. He rocked Mike a few times. And if Mike didn't have a neck of a tree and a dome as hard as a rock, he would have been down on the floor. And don't get me wrong, people are saying that Jake Paul took it easy on him. Like, no, he wanted him out. He wanted to knock Mike Tyson out. Imagine the narrative. Jake Paul, the Disney kid, knocking out the baddest man on the planet. Now, you telling me an egomaniac like Jake Paul isn't going to take that chance? Most definitely. Of course he will. He was just gunning for that. But he did feel Mike Tyson's power. That first round, that jab that got him, he sent him flying. And you know it was a jab for jab. Only difference is that Jake Paul was the one who was sent reeling back. And that's the difference of power. And he knew that, so he couldn't really tee off. Now, don't get me wrong, there has to be some sort of gentleman's agreement with this. I mean, he's 58. Jake Paul's only, what, 27, 28? So really, he's towards the peak of his prime, Jake Paul. So he's not gonna, tee off a 58-year-old legendary Mike Tyson. And if it did, it would have damaged his stocks. So he was playing somewhat of a businessman in the ring to enjoy the night, have as much fun as you can. If you can get a knockout, get the knockout. But if you can't, don't put yourself at risk of getting knocked out yourself, because Mike Tyson was dangerous, especially with those counters. Like, he didn't really showcase it that much, but if Jake Paul just would have pushed the pace a little bit more, it would have put him in that firing range and became more susceptible to Mike Tyson's counter. And you saw that in the third round with a left hook by Mike Tyson that caught Jake right in the neck area. But if it would have caught him in the chin, it would have been a different story. And that's the punch that got Jake Paul's respect. And from that moment onwards, he didn't push the pace as much as he would have or as much as he wanted of, because he knew that chasing or going for a knockout could end up with him getting knocked out. They got Mike Tyson's game plan so wrong. They were trying to make him fight like the young Mike Tyson. Bob and weave, a lot of footwork, leg movement. Like, Mike Tyson's legs are shot to pieces. I mean, only last year he was in a wheelchair. He can't move. For some reason, they still try to keep him moving. What they should have done, they should have utilized his old man strength, because that's genuine strength. Not toe to toe, but fight on the inside, because he can't close the range anymore. So what's the point of trying to chase Jake Paul and close the range where you can just let him come in and counter him and then do the work on the inside, in the grappling, in the clinches? Do your work in the clinches, because you're not going to catch him. Jake Paul, for what anyone says, has got a relatively good boxing IQ, and he's developed that, especially a great knowledge of distance, most specifically. And what you don't see with a lot of fighters with or less experienced fighters is that they're composed. And Jake Paul is extremely composed, and that's what's good about him. You can't just rush him. He's not gonna be rattled the way you would see like younger, inexperienced fighters would. So what Mike Tyson should have done is either counter and let Jake Paul come in and catch him on the inside, so you don't have to use your leg to deliver the punches, or just walk your way on the inside, dance your way, weave your way through it, not using even your legs, because you can just tuck up, walk him down, cut the corners, cut the ring on each side. And Mike Tyson wasn't doing that. Mike Tyson was just stagnant, coming here, and then he wasn't even doing anything. He was just in the center of the ring, turning left, turning right.
And biting his gloves. I mean, he probably bit his gloves more than he threw his punches.
I mean, it was just sad to see, because Mike Tyson in his prime had the best movement of all time. He was like teleporting from this side to this side to this side. He was the fastest, most explosive fighter of all time. He was just shell of himself, and they got the strategy wrong. If they wanted to beat him, he should have fought on the inside, where he could have used his strength and rough things up a little bit, because Jake Paul can't fight on the inside. He can't fight on the inside. He's a rangy fighter. He tries to be rangy because he's got relatively long reach and long limbs. Jake Paul won't be able to fight as good on the inside as someone who is shorter like Mike Tyson with shorter ranges. I mean, he could have fought him like Rocky Marciano right there. Like, guys with short limbs, they just really rip you to the body on the inside, and short uppercuts, hooks. That's the game plan where he should have stuck. He shouldn't have tried to fight like a young fighter with his legs, because he doesn't have that anymore. And that was his biggest mistake. Landing only 18 punches for Mike Tyson is abysmal. But at the end of the day, he's 58 years old. So that's like 18 punches more than any 58-year-old fighter has ever thrown, because he's the only man that has ever fought at that age in a professional fight. So respect to Mike Tyson, and he will always be a legend in my eyes. Whatever happened last night in this fight, it'll be forgotten in history. This is nothing. Like, no one's gonna remember this in a year's time. There are episodes in Mike Tyson's podcast that will be more memorable than this fight. So it ain't even gonna worry about it. It didn't tarnish his legend none whatsoever. Mike Tyson is and will forever be the baddest man on the planet in our eyes and in everyone's eyes, because of the ferocity he presented in the ring during his prime. But what we won't forget is what Jake Paul did in the prime of his career. Picked an old, aging Mike Tyson, a legend, and picked on him. Jake Paul essentially bullied him in the ring. He did whatever he wanted. You know, he was taunting him, tongue out, like all of this, like you're doing something, like you're facing a prime Mike Tyson or something. Like, no, that's a geriatric Mike Tyson. This is what your legend and your career is made out of. How people remember you as. And as of right now, Jake Paul is remembered and known by people, especially in the boxing circuit, as the guy that fights old, retired fighters. And Jake Paul will never get the so elusive respect that he desires. He will never have that credentials from the boxing community that he longs for and desires for so much. He'll never have the respect, because respect is earned by doing the right things. And the things he's doing is not right. He's going through the wrong way and the wrong route of boxing. He's not doing it the right way, meaning he didn't go from the bottom up. He's climbing over everyone's back just so he can get to the top and fight the easy fights and get the wins where he's supposed to win. He's never had a 50-50 fight. The only 50-50 fight he's had where he was challenged was against Tommy Fury. And Fury won that. Now, you can lie to the whole world and present yourself in strategic matchups like the one with Tyrone Woodley, Ben Askren, Anderson Silva, all these type of things. But deep within yourself, you know that this doesn't quench and feed the spirit you have within, because every fighter has that. They have that doubt within them that says you ain't good enough. And you can only defeat that doubt and defeat that fire within you if you challenge yourself enough to a fight where you know you won't be able to win, because you're going to have to pull something out from deep within you. And that sense of fulfillment is greater than what any amount of money can offer you. But Jake Paul is on a path of legitimacy. He wants to be a vetted professional and an accomplished champion. But how does he do that? Well, the road to that, my friend, is the one and only Canelo. Because Canelo also has interest in moving up the weight. I mean, he's already been a light heavyweight, so they can fight maybe a cruiser, but Canelo is the route that Jake Paul wants. It has to be for a championship belt. And trust me, WBC will make a way. They'll make a belt one way or another. They'll make a special belt for this fight. The money's always going to be right when it's Jake Paul. And kudos to him. And he's really improving boxing. He's put in the eyes of, millions. I mean, he was saying that like 120 million people streamed this fight on Netflix. I mean, think about that. It's bringing eyes to the sport, which can only improve it and do good to it. Especially with the undercard that came from that, which was the Serrano-Katie Taylor fight. And then the Ramos versus Barrios war. Those were good exemplar fights for boxing. So Jake Paul is doing a good thing. And people call him a clown. This is prize fighting. Some people have the fight and some people have the prize. And Jake Paul has that prize. He has that fame. He has that clout that can bring the viewers and eyes, that can generate money. This is a circus. And you can't have a circus without a clown.
Jake Paul is the best salesman in boxing history.
But I don't see that. See, I see Jake Paul as a scammer, because in order to be a salesman, you have to have some sort of value to offer to others. Jake Paul doesn't have that. That's why he has to scam people into these mythical fights, essentially, that can garner the attention of people, because if he doesn't have that, then he only has his skills, which his skills is abysmal. Just like Eddie Hearn said, he's average at best.
No, but you're still average. You're not.
That's not true.
I just give you where I think you're at, which I'm entitled to, which is average. Average is very complimentary to you.
That's not to denigrate him whatsoever. He just doesn't have the skills. I'm talking about skills, pound for pound. He just doesn't have the skills to be of a world-class or championship level. So he doesn't have that value to offer. Because when you just look at his true boxing skills and the value he possesses in boxing, you will see the outcome of that in the fights like Mike Perry versus Jake Paul. It didn't do well because people didn't really want to see Jake Paul for his boxing. People want to see Jake Paul for who he's fighting. Jake Paul versus this guy. It's not Jake Paul versus this. You have to get the attention from the other guy, because if it's just you and you alone, people don't want to see it. And another point that True Geordie said was that Jake Paul is the face of boxing.
Because the reality is, as much as Jake is totally right in saying that he's one of the faces of boxing, he absolutely is. We can't take that away from him now.
I wouldn't go as far as saying that. I would say he's more of a mascot. He's the mascot of boxing. The face of boxing is Canelo, Usyk, Tyson Fury, legitimate champions. Does well for the views, but when you look at the epitome of boxing, the skills, the prowess, the boxing IQ, technical abilities to showcase in the ring, he is not that whatsoever. Now, you can say that there are figures greater than the champions we have. Yes, that's true. But if you judge only by the clout, then you're lost, my friend. Because if you're a purist, then you understand, in order to be the face of something, you have to exhibit and possess every quality that is beautiful about the certain sport. And you can't be the face of basketball if you can't dunk. You can't be the face of football if you can't dribble. Jake Paul can't be the face of boxing. His level is rudimental. It's one-dimensional. He has the right hand jab at times, and his hook, his left hook, is tragic. Jake Paul's not the face of boxing. He's the mascot of it. But if Jake Paul wants to be taken more seriously, then he's going to need to take real fighters. And I'm not talking about just professional fighters. I'm talking about real legitimate tests to his name and match him up with fighters with 50-50 fights so he can really prove himself. So if Jake Paul wants to be a real superstar and boost him up towards championship level, what's the next step for Jake Paul? A name comes in mind, that is Tony Bellew, a retired cruiserweight champion that has power and that ain't too old, and he can fight you at heavyweight too. And that will be a good matchup for Jake Paul, just to test the waters against genuine world-class fighters. There's some sort of animosity there. You can sell the fight because Tony Bellew called him out during the press conference.
Jake Paul, the biggest clown within boxing.
And Tony Bellew will push and pull with you too. He's got a bit of banter with him. The next one is Andre Ward, former light heavyweight champion of the world and former pound for pound. He actually hinted at this towards the end of the stream on Netflix. If you watched it, if you caught on to this, he said that Jake Paul should fight someone much younger than Mike Tyson, alluding to himself. Now, you know what? That fight makes sense because Andre Ward is undefeated, beat Kovalev, known as one of the best boxing technicians, and he's not that old yet. He can still fight, and the boxing IQ is next level. He doesn't have as much pop in his punches. Now, can he knock out Jake Paul? Most definitely. To Jake Paul, he doesn't pose that much of a threat. So it's an easier way to push and get yourself through the doors of a championship fight by gaining legitimacy in fighting Andre Ward, a legit, bona fide champion. So if you fight that Jake Paul, I would say the best option for you is to fight Andre Ward. He's coming off of a long layoff. He's been retired for a few years now. And if you fight him and you beat him, because I do believe you have the power advantage over him, that will catapult you to superstardom in boxing and get the respect you so long for. That will be the best move for Jake Paul. I hope you liked this video, guys. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you think of the fight. Did you enjoy the fight? I mean, let me know your opinions down below. Now, if you want to watch legitimate champions and a genuine superstar, click this video right here.